Hi, I'm your host, Nicole, and welcome to Bookish Alchemy, the podcast where we explore the mysteries of the universe by unlocking hidden gems from some of my favorite reads and dusting off some thrifted treasures. The answers you seek are everywhere and often found in between the lines. Brought to you by Curious Mind Studios. I'm your host, Nicole, and today we're going to dive into a book written in 1908 by Edouard Cheret called Jesus, the Last Great Initiate. This little book is a piece of his larger work on the esoteric studies from the life of Jesus and the initiates and prophets who may have come before. This book goes beyond the traditional stories, as it is a radical exploration of his life as the ultimate spiritual rebel. A man with a fascinating history and links to people like Moses, Pythagoras, Buddha, and even Hermes Trismegistus. This isn't going to be your typical Sunday school version of Jesus, but one where he is the ultimate mystical superstar who was essentially born into an ancient secret society and destined to awaken the divine spark within all of us. So let's uncover some of these mysteries illustrated by Cheret. Imagine this, Mary as not just the mother of God and supporting figure, but she was also part a mystical Jewish sect called the Essenes, the guardians of ancient coded knowledge. In this tradition, women played a critical role in passing down sacred teachings, and Mary's prayer and pure intention did more than just conceive Jesus. It willed him into existence, aligning him with divine purpose, implying that Mary comes from a rich ancestry that was deeply rooted in spiritual understanding and wisdom. Aware of the nature of her divinity and the power of will, aka willpower, she was capable of manifesting a virgin birth, as Mary too was immaculately conceived, a phenomenon acknowledged in many ancient traditions as a sign of profound mystical abilities. Meanwhile, the Essenes played a crucial role in safeguarding this esoteric wisdom, as such an extraordinary capability would undoubtedly require protection and secrecy. Their protection ensured that Mary and the profound mysteries she bore were shielded from those who were not prepared to understand their higher significance. Cheret reflects this beautifully when he writes, "To the soul which comes from heaven, birth is a death, and however sublime the spirit be, once imprisoned in flesh, it temporarily loses the remembrance of all its past. Once engaged in corporal life, the development of its earthly consciousness is subjected to the laws of the world in which it incarnates. It falls under the force of the elements. The higher its origin, the greater will be the effort to regain its dormant powers, its celestial innateness, and to become conscious of its mission." This view of the virgin birth goes beyond a physical miracle. It's a metaphysical act of creation, an intentional manifestation of spiritual potential that sets the stage for the transformative legacy of the Christ. Because of her background and ancestry, Mary would have clearly had the knowledge of how to properly manifest. The virgin birth is symbolic of how we can all tap into divine creation within ourselves. Joseph, too, plays a crucial role, not just as a father figure, but as a spiritual partner who brought balance and protection to Mary's sacred mission. Together, they represent a perfect balance of the divine masculine and feminine, as their energy is one of mutual respect, love, and spiritual alignment. Now picture Jesus growing up in a family of this ancestry, and in a world steeped in secret wisdom. He was born into a lineage of spiritual masters, descendants of a tradition that went back thousands of years. Raised in the mystery schools, Jesus learned of the ternary nature of the soul, the cosmic harmony that governed the universe, and the divine order that links all things. Coded in layers of symbolism, this ternary concept of dividing the whole into three interconnected parts resonates deeply within the teachings Jesus received and later imparted. It is not just a theoretical construct, but a practical guide to understanding the structure of our own existence and the universe at large. For example, fire is light and heat. Light is different to fire because it can be produced outside of it. But fire is never separate from light, so fire is one and light is another. Now heat also comes from fire, yet different. Though they appear separate, Light and heat are simply different expressions of the same underlying reality. This metaphor illustrates the ternary nature of our own existence, as we are a spirit, soul, and body. The united spirit and soul that manifest within is what animates our physical form. Each component, spirit, soul, and body, plays a critical role in shaping our experiences and our capacity for spiritual growth. In this framework, we are not merely physical beings, but a complex interplay of spiritual, ethereal, and corporeal elements. The spirit and soul represent the non-material aspects of our being, transcendent yet inherently present, animating our physical form. It is through the convergence of these elements that we experience life in its fullest expression. In the mystery schools that Jesus attended, this principle would have been paramount, not only as a subject of study, but as a profound guide to personal and communal transformation. These teachings aim to illuminate the interconnectedness of all life and existence and can lead to a deeper realization of our own divine nature and potential. Quoting from Shure's book, Jesus was instructed in the doctrine of the divine word, already taught by Krishna in India, by the priests of Osiris, by Orpheus and Pythagoras in Greece, and known to the prophets under the name of the mysteries of the Son of Man and of the Son of God. The great mystery revealed in Shure's book highlights how, through this unique spiritual training, Jesus came to understand the fundamental nature of existence and the universal laws that govern it. These teachings were not hidden esoteric secrets, but wisdom intended to awaken us to our own divinity. Central to this wisdom is the law of the Father, which tells us, "Ask and you shall receive." This metaphysical law underlines the powerful connection between our intentions and the universe, suggesting that what we seek is already on its way, because in the universe's eyes, it's already ours. However, Jesus' education extended beyond theoretical knowledge. It was profoundly experiential. Through intense initiations and meditations, he deepened his understanding and consciousness. Quoting Shure, Jesus learned that Genesis, under the seal of its symbolism, concealed a theogony and cosmogony as far removed from their literal signification as is the profoundest truth of science from a child's fable. He contemplated the days of the Elohim, or the internal creation by emanation of the elements and the formation of the worlds, the origin of the floating souls, and their return to God by progressive existences, or generations of Adam. End quote. This depth of knowledge marked a pivotal moment as Jesus not only mastered, but transcended the teachings of his spiritual masters. He embodied the energy of unconditional love and felt the world was ready for this profound truth, a truth that he felt shouldn't be confined to the elites or religious leaders. As Shure writes, ought he not rather place within the reach of all mankind his truth, which heretofore had remained the privilege of few sanctuaries and initiates, to open every heart to receive it until the time should be ripe for it to penetrate the mind by inner revelation and science? End quote. Jesus wasn't just advocating for a better way to live. He wanted to show us how we level up by tapping into our inner divinity, break free from societal constraints, and step into the fullness of our being. With the Essenes' understanding of his mission, the elders granted Jesus the highest initiation, a tradition passed down since the times of Moses and Melchizedek. I'll read from the text. Jesus received in profound secrecy the superior initiation of the fourth degree, the one granted only in the special case of a prophetic mission. The chief of the order offered him the golden chalice as a symbol of the final initiation, containing the wine of the Lord's vineyard, the symbol of divine inspiration. End quote. He emerged from this initiation a changed man. He was freed from the external constraints and could be guided entirely by the impulses of the Spirit. From this moment forward, Jesus was more than a student. He had become the living Word. Inner teachings versus outer. With this divine authority, Jesus entered the synagogues, where he engaged the scholars of the law. But Jesus started to notice that key aspects of the divine texts were left out. The religious leaders had taken the sacred teachings and stripped them of their spirit, leaving behind only rigid dogma. I'll quote from Sheree. We follow Jesus to the synagogue where he heard the scribes and Pharisees discuss together and where he himself was to exercise his dialectical powers. We see him quickly repelled by the arid teaching of the doctors of the law who tortured the letter to such an extent as to do away with the spirit. This idea of torturing the letter also reminds me of the way we use language, the way we use words to spell, create meanings, and influence the world through our words. We all understand the power of our words, so if in a way words are spells, Jesus saw that these religious authorities were using them to imprison rather than liberate. And this was one of Jesus' most radical realizations, that the official Jewish doctrine was far from the ancient wisdom. True knowledge was hidden beneath layers of legalism, and he knew his mission was to restore the inner truth. The kingdom of heaven is within. In first century Judea, under the weight of Roman rule, Jesus' message was a revolution of the heart and mind. He wasn't calling for a violent uprising, but a transformative shift, empowering us to take control of our lives, to live with unconditional love, and to create our own reality. For example, even his miracles, such as healing the blind, were not mere acts of kindness, but teachings in themselves. When Jesus restored sight to the blind man, he was not just curing a physical condition, he was awakening the man's inner vision. This demonstrating that the true power of healing, transformation, and enlightenment is within us, not outside of. By tapping into our own divine potential, we can overcome any challenge, just as the blind man did. The true kingdom was not of this world. It was within each person. He saw humanity's potential for transformation and urged them to seek enlightenment from within. I'll elaborate with some context from the book. The Galilean prophet sets the inner life of the soul above all other practices, the invisible above the visible, the kingdom of heaven above the benefits of earth. This is the spirit over matter, mind over matter way of thinking. He commands that the choice be made between God and man. Then summing up the doctrine, he says, love your neighbor as yourself, because in the strangest way, everyone is you. Jesus was not trying to create a political kingdom. He was showing people that their souls were already free. He wasn't leading a rebellion against Rome. He was leading a revolution of consciousness. This is why his message remains universal. He was not only speaking to his time, but to every age. His teachings connect the finite to the infinite, the individual to the universal. They reflect the sacred geometric principles of the cosmos itself, balance, harmony, and divine proportion. So how do we access this ancient wisdom today? Jesus' message is simple but profound. Everything you need is already within you. His life was an example, an invitation to step beyond limitation and into divine realization. Sheree tells us that ultimately, his word and sacrifice show the foundations of an invisible temple, but it is only continued and brought to completion as each individual throughout time contributes to the work. Unquote. So in that way, each of us is a builder of this moral temple. Each of us is on a journey toward divine perfection, refining our souls in each lifetime, in each lesson, in each act of love. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Jesus, the last great initiate. You've been listening to Bookish Alchemy. If this episode resonated with you, please share the magic, subscribe, and leave a review to keep the conversation going. Your reviews are the highest form of support as they help the show grow. So until next time, stay curious, and remember, the answers you seek are often found between the lines. Produced by Curious Mind Studios.